You're listening to the podcast about little-known niche subcultures and hobbies that reintroduces you to your neighbors in Technicolor. I'm Leslie Thompson, and it's niche to meet you. Hey Niche Nation, Leslie here. I am well underway in producing the next story for Niche to Meet You about a niche that is so joyful. It offers so much community, so much belonging. I actually saw it in action in New York City a couple weeks ago. I have some more interviewing to do, more recordings, but I'll be sharing more details in the September niche letter at the end of the month. So if you're not on that already, go join the niche list. It's in our show notes. But for today, this episode you're listening to right now, I'm taking you back in time to about a year ago. Do you remember life a year ago? I struggle to sometimes. This was a story so surprising, and I left part of my heart in it. If you're a Harry Potter person, this is one of the stories that is absolutely a Leslie Horcrux. Yes, we're going back in time today. Back before Apple picked us as a new and noteworthy show. Back before Malcolm Gladwell told revisionist history to listen to us. I'm taking it back to when Niche to Meet You was a passion project. When I was just making things because I wanted to tell new stories. And it was before I tried to get any press coverage. It was just this pure, unadulterated thing that I was making and that I loved. And so about a year ago, we released a 4-part story about wild turkey conservation. It was my own way to contribute to the tension that I felt rising in all of us as we approached the 2024 presidential election here in the United States. I actually went back and I looked at my submission information for Apple to be featured as a new and noteworthy show. And what I said was, we have an upcoming mini-series about wild turkey conservation that provides a shocking look at how we can work to mend gaps despite divided interests. With the current election, listeners will be looking for stories that are uplifting and offer a breath of fresh air. While the mini-series isn't political, I promise you, it's not. It offers encouragement and an example of surprising ways gaps are being mended, specifically in the rescue of the wild turkey species. Here in 2025, I still stand by every single word that I wrote about this series. So I wanted to revisit it, but instead of doing 4 parts, I reformatted it. So I'm releasing it in 2 longer episodes. I try to wrap my hands around a lot in this story. I featured voices across a range of political and sociological spectrums. I spoke with liberals, conservatives, conservationists, and hunters, Native and white Americans. And we find the surprising ways these voices are sincerely, and I truly mean this, working together for a common and important goal. And don't we need to hear more stories like this? I can assure you that what you hear is not navel-gazing, nor is it naive. It is rooted in an understanding that in order to move forward, we have to have curiosity, we have to have joy. And I firmly believe the niche is the way to do that most effectively. And hey, if you're listening and you don't want to hear a story about hunting, which we do have to talk about, I'm here to tell you that this is not a violent show. We don't talk about killing. We don't talk about death. We talk about hunting as a way to respect the land, as a way to live in reciprocity. I think you'll be really surprised by what you're going to hear. Thanks for being here. Let's get to the episode. Wild turkeys are known to some as an American tradition, the centerpiece of a celebration table, the image found on paper plates and napkins in November.
The image of a wild turkey gobbler in full strut is one of those iconic images that, when you think of something as simple as Thanksgiving dinner, you ought to make you think of that.
To some, the wild turkey is a nuisance, roaming neighborhood streets, picking on innocent passersby, and nesting in yards.
There's this turkey. I can't get out of my car. This thing keeps trying to attack me. And he is right outside my window, and he's mad. He rolls his window down, and I can hear the turkey through his phone just like going crazy.
And to others, the wild turkey is a figure kind of like Moby Dick that invites them into a chess match of wills and ethics.
What I try to do is I try to be one of them, think like them.
But the hunting and preservation of this creature, the weird wild turkey, has given way to a subculture with its own universe. Huge gatherings, industries, nonprofits, equipment, celebrities, and language. It's a multifaceted niche that's a hobby for some, a lifestyle for others, and a profession for a select few. In this Niche to Meet You story, we are exploring the niche of wild turkey conservation. We'll tell it over 2 parts. It's a thing that formally started in the mid-1900s, but its roots reach back thousands of years.
Every creature, every animal, every plant in that forest or in your environment, you want to safeguard it. And every time you take, you give, you pray. You pray or you sing or you give something back to it.
What we discover from this wild turkey exploration may be as elusive as the creature itself. But if those who love it wax poetic about the experience of hunting it, surely there's meaning to be found. You'll even come with me turkey hunting in the Tennessee woods on a quest to hear this captivating gobble. I'm Leslie Thompson. It's Niche to Meet You, and this is Wild Turkey Conservation. Before we go on, I want to address something. Call it the elephant in the room. Why are we talking about wild turkey conservation? Emphasis on conservation. Why not turkey hunting, or turkey calling, or turkey taxidermy? You'll learn about all of those things in this mini-series, by the way. But no, this is about conservation of the wild turkey. Because the conservation of the wild turkey includes all of it, and more. Let me be clear. If this story was only about hunting, I wouldn't be interested to tell it, and I wouldn't ask you for your time to listen. It's not the hunting and the peripheral activities that compelled me to make 4 episodes about this thing. To spend countless hours collecting audio and waking up at 4 a.m. on a Saturday to sit on a wet forest floor. It's because if you spend more than 5 minutes talking to a turkey hunter like I have, you'll begin to realize there's more to the wild turkey story than the culture of hunting it down, tagging one, and bringing it home to mount on the wall. What you'll hear when you lean in is that it's an important story for all of us. We can learn a lot and maybe even be a little bit changed. Maybe our world can become more nuanced. No, see, the wild turkey conservation story isn't just about hunting. It's about more than that. It's about mending seemingly irreparable gaps. And yes, changing the world. And I really mean that. But in order to prove my point, we do have to talk about hunting, and stick with me. I promise this is not glorifying violence in any way. This is a type of hunting that comes from living off the land. And for that reason, the wild turkey is extremely significant, especially for North America.
The wild turkey, I think, is the only North American animal with wild in its name.
That's Brent Rogers. You'll hear him a lot in this series. He's a wild turkey historian and call collector in Iowa. He helped me understand that the delight in this odd bird is actually historic. Turns out, the wild turkey has always been in North America, but they didn't even get their name until they took a trip overseas.
Aztecs and Incas had domesticated turkeys, and turkeys were taken by the Spanish in 1520s back to Europe from Mexico. And it's a bit mysterious. Some people think because Turkish traders were trading it, turkey was given the name turkey.
So while the name actually came from Europe, the turkey is 100% North American. It's kind of an all-American bird. So much so that a lot of folks will claim that Ben Franklin wanted our national bird to be a wild turkey instead of an eagle. Now, this myth isn't completely true, by the way.
In a letter to his daughter, after the eagle was chosen as the national symbol, Ben Franklin wrote that he wished that wild turkey would have been chosen because it was a much more noble bird.
Fellow turkey enthusiast and legendary callmaker Bob Fulcher spoke to the national importance of the bird when we talked, which is also what endeared it to Ben Franklin.
When he felt like the wild turkey really stood for America, because it was a bird that was widespread across the country, and he just thought that was more of a symbol for us as a country than an aggressive predator-type bird.
There's another aspect to the historical significance of the turkey that seems obvious to me, but I'll point it out here. Turkeys immediately bring to mind a feasting table, don't they? I'm guessing the moment you heard or saw the word turkey related to this project, you thought about Thanksgiving. Despite history textbooks reducing the November event to a peaceful coexisting of two parties, one with headdresses and the other with pilgrim hats, warmly celebrating unity around a long table, we know that the actual context surrounding the first Thanksgiving was anything but tranquil. It was indeed a harvest meal celebration shared between the early colonizers and the Wampanoag people in Plymouth, Massachusetts. But the stories we're told in elementary school don't lead us to believe that the peace of that meal was temporary. Soon after, conflict began again, and the Wampanoag peoples would lose their land and the control of it.
I mean, look, they welcomed the invaders. It's just the native way. I mean, because they were just hospitable people. They wanted to help, but it was not returned.
That's Cindy Yahola, a member of the Creek Nation who runs the Wilson County Powwow in Tennessee. This piece of the turkey story, how it became a national symbol based on misinformation, it matters a great deal. It matters that we know that the conservation of this bird is really about undoing an unhelpful practice with origins dating hundreds of years back. And it's exemplified in the truth about the first Thanksgiving meal. You'll meet Cindy later in the series when we dissect this, how the indigenous people's practices and beliefs built the basis for repairing the turkey population. But to understand that, we have to learn how the wild turkey almost went extinct. To learn more about the sordid past of the wild turkey species, I talked to biologist Roger Shields, the Wild Turkey Program Coordinator for the state of Tennessee. He helps the state track populations, but he's also the guy that fields calls about aggressive birds in neighborhoods.
And the turkey must have known the UPS guy because he got up and walked straight to the door of that UPS truck, fluffed up, like calling, like the UPS guy's got his clipboard and is shielding himself from this turkey who is going after the UPS driver. And he's like, man, every day I come, this thing chases me. He gets in his truck and drives off, and the turkey chases him for like 4 driveways down the road.
But there was a point in history when seeing a turkey in a neighborhood just wouldn't happen because there weren't really any. Hunting nearly wiped the species out.
In the early 1900s, there was a lot of subsistence hunting, but there was also a lot of what we call market hunting. Wild animals were being hunted and then basically shipped to markets in the East. It was basically commercial hunting, and there was a market. And that commercial hunting, whether it was bison in the Great Plains, passenger pigeons, throughout the eastern part of the United States, but it was causing a lot of decline in numbers of species. But there was a group of hunters that started to recognize we're losing a lot of our game species. A lot of our wildlife species are disappearing. And they took the initiative to take action about that.
Wait, it was the hunters? Yep. It was the hunters that saved the wild turkey from extinction. The hunters banded together to save the very thing they hunted. Turkey historian Brent explained this to me.
Some people think there were 30,000 turkeys that were wild left across the whole country versus when Columbus arrived, they estimated around 10 million. So politicians and landowners and conservation organizations, academics and biologists all came together. And in 1959 had their first wild turkey symposium and said, we understand there's a problem and these are the tools we need to fix it. And they got busy and started to do that. The other population was that really rabid bunch of turkey hunters that even though there were so few left, they loved it so much, they kept going, even though a successful season may have been to hear one gobble. It wasn't even about killing it. They just loved doing it. So, and they kept making some turkey calls and they kept that tradition alive.
Did you catch that? It wasn't even about killing, he said. Really? I respond. How could this be?
I know that sounds crazy, but I always say a real hunter wants the animal to live more than you want it to die. And if you're going to take, you have to give back. That's why there's tens of thousands of people gathering at the National Wild Turkey Federation now, and why millions of dollars will change hands, because there are so many people passionate about the wild turkey that they want to see it live more than they want to see it die.
The tradition Brent talks about is core to the understanding of the wild turkey conservation niche. You heard him mention just now the National Wild Turkey Federation, and you'll learn more about this later in the episode. This is the formalization of the conservation efforts founded in the mid-20th century, the group of hunters that saw a problem and worked to fix it. These hunters, there's something that compels them to go out before the sun rises and yearn to simply hear a sound, something that galvanized them to take serious action, something more than just hunting itself. It was a way to survive that was passed down through generations.
Hunting, in general, allows people to connect further to their food than anything else, even farming. Growing up on a farm, my father remembers slaughtering their own animals, but that's a connection to your food. And then when you start to do it, that's where you start to see beyond the food. And then you start to see the value of the life you're taking. Once you establish that and you stand there with something whose life you just took, for most of us, there's a lot of gravity in that. You know, I lay my hand on every turkey, even with people I've taken that are not spiritual people, and I say a prayer of thanks, because to me, that's a sacred act.
Now, let's get this out of the way. This is not the same kind of frozen bird you'd get at a grocery store. We're not talking about the turkey that we're buying at Aldi for our Thanksgiving table.
No, ma'am. There is an organization for that. I think they might actually just be called the National Turkey Federation.
The W is important then.
Yes. So when we're talking about wild turkey, we're not talking about the bourbon.
That's Pete. He works for the National Wild Turkey Federation. You've heard this mentioned a couple times already. It was the official formation of hunters and conservationists nationwide who came together to solve a problem.
And it's been considered by many to be one of the greatest conservation success stories in the United States when you look at a particular species.
But this wasn't a simple effort of just laying off the hunting for a while. It required some modern technology. Here's Brent Rogers again.
There were drugged turkeys and netted turkeys and things that they had early on, even before 1950 or around 1950, that they were transporting. But it wasn't until after World War II when they took a cannon, essentially, and were using what they called cannon nets to shoot over turkeys and capture them live. And then they had radio telemetry, and that made the difference. So state agencies started doing that. And in the 1950s and 60s, many states had restoration programs. What the Wild Turkey Federation did is came in and turned that into a unified effort and looked across the country and said, we're going to target these areas and we're going to improve this habitat, and helped raise the money to do that.
Yeah, the hunters even put their money behind it. Not just for them, but for future generations, largely in the form of the 1937 Pittman-Robertson Act, which places the funds from firearms and ammunition right into the hands of wildlife agencies for conservation work. As Brent says,
if it wasn't for the Pittman-Robertson Act, there wouldn't be money to even start that effort. The wild turkey would not have been restored without hunters. Being able to hunt, not everybody's for that, but when the people that want to hunt are the driving force behind making sure that habitat for wildlife is improved, it certainly gives you not just a vote, but a stake in it. And that's where I think we've been able to work together even outside of political norms, because people just can't deny that there's not only is there a passion there, but there's blood, sweat, and tears invested into it. And as you talk to the biologists and folks like that, that's what they do. They pursued those careers because it's what they wanted to do.
People just like Roger, the biologist who works specifically with turkeys in Tennessee. This full-scale effort to save the wild turkey species required collaboration of two seemingly opposing forces. But we'll find that they really aren't opposed at all. In fact, they both inherit practices that have been working together for thousands of years, and were actually present at the beginning of our very own American cultural wild turkey origin story. We at the Niche to Meet You podcast strive for high production value and creative integrity, and we spare little expense to bring it to you, even in the smallest of offerings, which is why we have produced the following advertisement you're about to hear in order to tell you about our merchandise. Enjoy. Merch! Merch is here! Niche to Meet You merch. Niche to Meet You merch. Niche to Meet You merch. The merch is here! Niche to Meet You merch. Niche to Meet You merch. Niche to Meet You merch. The merch is here! Find a link to merchandise in the show notes. Story. Now, here's a final yet very important wild turkey fact. It's incredibly adaptable, which means, yes, it can exist just about anywhere between the two coasts in the United States. That's another reason why Ben Franklin thought it more appropriate as our national bird. But there is a catch. They need places to roost and water to drink. Climate doesn't matter, but their species-specific needs cover needs of many species, and their presence is an indication of the health of a local ecosystem.
Its habitat management is the key of it, but if you don't have that part right, that's where turkeys can be exploited, whether it's by predators or just hunting in general, because you're taking and you're not allowing for the same rate of putback.
When you consider the wild turkey, you have to put a lot of other things in balance and in check.
The bottom line is that you look at any place wild turkey habitat has been reestablished, and you'll see a benefit for songbirds and other game species. And when those dollars are spent, it's benefiting maybe the wild turkey the least in some ways, because what you're doing is not increasing the turkey population by 5,000%. It's probably incremental. What you're doing is improving the quality of the habitat for everything to survive, and probably the food and water quality as well. So that's the real investment, I think.
Which benefits us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when I had decided to cover wild turkey conservation as a niche for this show, I started asking friends what they knew about this creature, what their experiences were with the wild turkey. And one person told me about a documentary. Now, it's not about wild turkeys, but there's a character who's kind of obsessed.
I killed my first turkey when I was 10 years old. I can't tell you how many I killed, but I killed a lot of them.
This man's name is Mr. Shipes. He's a real-life person featured in a 1982 documentary called Vernon, Florida. It's about the town of Vernon, Florida, and the people who live in it. It was made by acclaimed documentarian Errol Morris, and this town is pretty sleepy. When I say sleepy, I mean that the film is slow-moving. It's tied together with little except character study, and every character in Vernon is otherworldly and heightened. It's almost like Errol wrote them himself, but he didn't. He just put a camera on them and captured the rawness of a small southern town with all its quirks and idiosyncrasies, and Mr. Shipes with his turkey obsession. He's a lead character.
See, now, we spend time like this, day in and day out, not hear nothing. But you know they're here. They're a smart bird, the smartest we got in this country.
Until I started researching this project, I thought Mr. Shipes was an extreme, a caricature. Errol Morris just happened to find the #1 turkey fan in the whole wide world residing in Vernon, Florida. But I'm here to tell you, Shipes isn't exaggerated. No, Mr. Shipes is just a turkey dude, and they're all like him. They talk about turkeys like distant, crazy relatives they only see at reunions, but that bring a big old party. There's an endearment, a respect, an excitement. And what makes wild turkey conservation so fascinating to explore begins with these people. The ones who talk about this goofy-looking animal with a sparkle in their eyes that sound like Farmer Billy, who you'll meet in depth later in the episode. We went hunting together at 4:15 a.m. on a farm in Tennessee.
I know it sounds weird sometimes, but there's a trick to turkeys. They're pretty set in their ways. What I try to do is I try to be one of them. Think like them.
Wild turkey people are different, and they know it, and they're proud of it.
And if you've never met a certain individual before and you run into him at Walmart and he says he's a turkey hunter, you guys are best friends instantly.
That's Bob Fulcher, callmaker and wild turkey celebrity. Historian Brent Rogers agreed with Bob and explained to me why the culture of turkey hunting is so unique.
Turkey hunters are different hunters. And there's a great quote, and I think Archibald Rutledge, who was a writer from South Carolina, said, "Some men are mere hunters and others are turkey hunters." And I think that's what's unique about the turkey hunting subculture is people say it's a damn disease. When you get bit by the turkey hunting bug, you can get rabid about it.
What about it? What about it's so enticing?
Because of the way that we communicate with the wild turkey while we do it, and because turkeys are so inherently wild and not easy to hunt. To me, again, I think it goes back to the communication and the strategy of the actual hunt.
Notice that Brent didn't say turkey hunting is about finding the biggest one to eat or mounting the turkey for bragging rights. It's about the strategy of the experience.
Yes, it's great to end a hunt with a kill. However, it's not why I go, and it's not the thing I most remember. People see the social media pics that people put up, and they assume that that's where all the celebration is at, is in the kill, and it's not. You can't post the experience, but for most of us, that's why we're here, is because that's what binds us together, is that time that we spent in the woods or out in the field or wherever, talking to turkeys, observing turkeys, letting them hunt us. It's just a chess match.
When you talk to turkey hunters, this phrase, chess match, will come up because it's just the most accurate way to describe the idea of hunting a turkey. You're trying to be one step ahead of your opponent and make a move that will catch them off guard while still paying attention to the immediate moves. Here's Roger Shields, turkey coordinator for the state of Tennessee.
What to move, when to move, whether to move, when to call, when not to call. Where's he going to show up? Is he going to be behind me? And how do you try and draw him around in front of you? And they're extremely wary. They have extremely good eyesight, so you have to be almost as still as possible. And sometimes they're just quiet. I mean, you'll hear them gobbling, and all of a sudden they go quiet, and you don't know, did he leave? Is he held up out there somewhere and not coming closer? Is he still coming, but he just isn't gobbling anymore? There's that part of it that I think is thrilling to people.
But it's not just the thrill of the hunt that brings people out to the woods to find turkeys. No, there's something else, something deeper. Things like legacy and familial bonds play a large role for the folks who do it, like for Wendy, who came to it later in life.
I was in my mid-30s, a mother of 3, and my dad turkey hunted, and I know how much he loved the sport. Yeah, I took the hunter ed course, but I also had an older friend that was a mentor to me, and Paulette took me when I got my first turkey. So I started, and they created a monster. I love turkey hunting.
Roger has seen this relational element at play, too.
I worked with a guy who grew up hunting, and he talks about hunting with his grandpa. And I think his grandpa's since passed, but his last hunt, he really wanted to go up there and spend that time with his grandpa, just kind of remember the good old days. So there's the family part of it. There's the outdoorsy conservation, woodsman, love being outdoors part of it. It's multifaceted.
The culture of wild turkey conservationists is strong, and by that, I mean it's galvanized itself to the point where they have their own lingo, traditions, and practices. And you can see it all on display at the National Wild Turkey Federation Convention.
Let's go talk about some wild turkeys.
Held every year at Nashville's famous Opryland Hotel, the NWTF convention is a gathering of wild turkey enthusiasts, and enthusiastic they are. The offerings of this convention are vast and dizzying. Meetings and sessions include official wild turkey conservation business with updates on leadership and initiatives, and luncheons to celebrate volunteers and contributors to the cause. But in addition to formal meetings, there's an entire building with vendors whose offerings encompass more than just turkey hunting, but hunting and outdoor activities of all types. There's also a taxidermy competition.
Our taxidermists are highly skilled artisans. They do tremendous work. We'll have about 60,000 people through the doors this year, so they get a lot of viewing.
And there's a calling competition.
Welcome to the 2024 NWTF Grand National Friction Preliminary Round of Competition.
These folks are using their handheld calls to mimic hen noises to entice a tom. Behold, the first contestant in the competition.
Your final call will be Gobbler Yelp.
The folks in this competition are the best of the best. They've been competing all season to make it to this event. The best callers include folks like a guy named Matt Van Sice. Brent Rogers, who collects turkey calls, says Matt is the GOAT of turkey calling.
Matt Van Sice is the GOAT because he is stacking up turkey calling championship titles like he's building a brick house. I mean, it is truly amazing. He's rooted himself in the voice of the wild turkey. So he listens to turkeys and he goes back to original audio of wild turkeys, and he is truly speaking the wild turkey's voice.
The calls Matt and other competitors are using can be made by hand by the likes of Bob Fulcher, who's a legendary call maker. He and I met at the NWTF convention.
The turkey call itself has a way of bringing us together. There's a fellowship that you'll find in turkey hunters that you won't find it in deer hunters or duck hunters or pheasant hunters. There's something about turkey hunters that we come together and we like to be friends. So.
Bob is so legendary, in fact, that he's known by name by celebrities like Matt Light, former Patriots offensive lineman who won 3 Super Bowls with Tom Brady, who was even on the stage for the roast of Tom Brady. Matt has a nonprofit helping young people to develop skills for the future, including outdoor education and hunting. And yes, Bob Fulcher, the call maker, is even a celebrity to Matt Light, who stopped an entire interview to call Bob out in the room.
We're having this conversation here at NWTF. We have a legend that just walks in, Mr. Bob Fulcher. And if you haven't met Bob, you should, because he's a world-class caller, call maker. And I'm going to be getting Bob some amazing wood so he can make some cool calls. But a little shout out to him. Yeah, we have a long history, so.
Bob Fulcher embodies what it means to be a turkey person. He's been one his whole life. He's a hunter, yes, but he's better known as a call maker. Started learning to make calls from his grandfather, who made them in the tradition of a man named Jeremiah Stevens. Jeremiah was freed from slavery in Virginia, and he was well known for his turkey hunting skills and what's known as a scratch box call. Stevens' scratch box calls are some of the most unique, and while there's not much history recorded about him, the turkey world has not forgotten. In fact, the National Wild Turkey Federation awards the Jeremiah Stevens call every year for the best scratch box call. Bob, a celebrated call maker, often judges these competitions, and he feels at home when he's here.
Together, we have a common passion that brings us together. And
Why is that?
I can't tell you. It's something really magic. It's just something special that happens. And I think this NWTF convention has a big impact on that too. And we'll spend the whole weekend here talking and meeting new people and making new friends. You just don't see that in other groups of hunters. So the whole culture is very unique and there's an attractiveness to it. There's something that draws us to it.
Some people like me would have assumed that the draw has something to do with some attraction to hunting, killing, or controlling an environment. But that's not at the heart of the ethos for wild turkey hunters.
We experience more joy in the parts of the hunt that don't involve killing something. And that can be the friendship with the buddy that you're sitting next to the tree with, or it could just be the experiences that you're enjoying when you're out there seeing the daffodils in bloom as you're walking across a pasture in the morning, or you hear the whippoorwills as they're singing in the dark as you're moving towards your hunting area. There's just so much to the whole experience that the killing of the animal is really the smallest part of a turkey hunt. And most of us can go out there and not kill anything, and we go home and we feel just as satisfied as if we harvested an animal. Matter of fact, I always say that if I go out and I get to hear at least one good, strong gobble in the morning, I've had a great day. I can hunt all day and go home and I'll still feel like I had a wonderful day in the woods.
When you meet a turkey hunter, at some point, I promise, You'll swear they've got tears welling up in their eyes talking about the bird and the times they spent trying to find it. They use words like magic and beauty and grace.
Well, you try to get out in the woods in the pre-dawn, get out while it's still a little dark and get to your tree and set up and wait. And when the light starts coming out, and some days even before the light starts coming through the clouds, you will hear turkeys start gobbling, and it will make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And it is a wonderful, wonderful sound, similar to the bugle of an elk or the cackle of a hen, a pheasant when you kick her up. It's an iconic sound. And when you hear that in the woods for your first time, I guarantee it'll change your life.
Are all call makers as poetic as you are?
When you hear that first gobble in the morning in the woods, you'll understand everything.
And this is Brent, remembering the first time he ever saw a turkey.
I remember seeing the first turkey on our farm in the 1980s and just thinking, that is amazing.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Just watching it fly off, thinking that is a thing of grace and beauty. Just amazing.
And Roger, even Roger Shields, who works for the state, he can start to sound like Thoreau.
Maybe across most people, there is just a love of the outdoors. Just to be in the woods when it's quiet at night, and then as the woods start to come alive, as the sun, starts to rise and the birds start calling and everything starts waking up. I mean, there's just a part of us that we enjoy that.
This way they talk about the turkey and hunting, it's not completely original to them. There's a tradition of using poetic language in this niche. In fact, one of the key conservationists who helped with the turkey survival efforts was lauded as the poet laureate of turkey hunting. His name is Tom Kelly, and he wrote the pivotal turkey hunting book, 10th Legion. The 10th Legion is Rome's elite military force, and Kelly saw the same determination and commitment in turkey hunters as he read about the Romans. Remember, chess match, strategy. He was a colonel in the army, well-read, whip-smart. He's still living at age 97. He's a bona fide turkey hunting celebrity. Everyone who hunts or knows anything about wild turkeys knows Tom Kelly. Here's Tom in the official 10th Legion audiobook, reading a passage that nearly took my breath away.
He will experience moments of tragedy of such a depth and feeling as to preclude them from having been written by anyone but Euripides, and he will exalt in periods of piercing rapture, previously understood only by willing Christian martyrs being eaten by willing lions.
Poetry. Preceding Tom Kelly's writing is a book known to hunters and conservationists alike by one of the early voices in the conservationist movement, a man from Wisconsin named Aldo Leopold.
Well, I went to school in the environmental field.
This is Ken Beach. He does conservation and environmental work in Illinois. He grew up hunting and being outdoors, but it wasn't until he read Aldo Leopold's seminal work and collection of essays called A Sand County Almanac that he began his career in environmental and conservation efforts.
It just had a lot of really great perspectives and shone a light on the interaction of hunting and conservation.
Was that a new concept that he was presenting, or had that already kind of been established?
It was fairly new in his time, back in the 40s, 50s, I believe it was. So he brought those learnings that he had into the classroom and began wildlife management classes. Aldo Leopold had a big impact on me, and I think many others.
Many others, indeed. Aldo Leopold started a whole movement. You'll learn more about him later in this series. His work is more significant than just beautiful writing, but let's be clear, it is beautiful writing. Reading A Sand County Almanac, you'll find passages like this.
My earliest impressions of wildlife and its pursuit retain a vivid sharpness of form, color, and atmosphere that half a century of professional wildlife experience has failed to obliterate or improve upon.
Aldo Leopold and Tom Kelly's books, with their distinct differences yet similar style, are love stories about being outside in nature. No matter who you talk to on the subject of wild turkeys, it always comes back to this.
I love being out in nature and getting to watch the world wake up. I just love getting to call the birds in and having them respond, and just the thrill of the hunt. Every time I hear a bird gobble it, I get chill bumps.
Something we hunt because the entire experience, from the minute you step out of your truck in the morning and you feel that cold air hit your face, and maybe hear an owl hoot across the woods, and then hear your first gobble in the morning. The entire experience is what draws us in.
After weeks of interviews, talking to top fans of the wild turkey and hearing stories that gave me goosebumps, I had a very strong urge to take myself out in the dark of morning and find a turkey. And it wasn't easy. I feel like I'm catfishing turkeys. After the break, you'll come with me on a turkey hunt or two. Be right back. Hey, so it is September 4th, and I am opening the 1440 Daily News Digest for today, this very day. I'm going to go down to the etc. section. This is like one of my favorite sections. And I would really like to know where the best fall foliage is going to be. So let me click on that. And there's this cool map with a timeline that I can choose. Oh my goodness, this is great. So September 8th, it's looking like it'll start to happen in the top, and then where will it happen in Nashville, I wonder? Oh, by the end of October, it's coming, fall foliage. The 1440 Daily News Digest helped me figure out when to find my fall foliage, along with things like Disney's Cinderella Castle is getting a makeover and castle transformation over the years. But at the top, there's things like top headlines we need to know, sports entertainment, science and technology, business and markets. It's all there. It's extremely important stuff. This free Daily News Digest, they sponsor this show, and that is a really big deal to me because I love the work that they do. So go sign up. I know there's a lot of things we're signed up for, but I'm telling you, this is the one you will not unsubscribe from. So let's get back to the episode. Some people have wild turkeys in their neighborhood. A friend in Minnesota sent me a handful of news articles about turkey running amok in Minneapolis. A healthy turkey population, to be sure, if not a bother and a nuisance. I don't have the same kind of luck in my own neighborhood, so I had to go out and find one myself. But I've never done this before. Where to even begin? Luckily, I know some people who can give me pointers. Like Bob, the call maker. What would you start with?
Say in the spring, I might start out with just a cluck or just a couple yelps. And sometimes that's all it needs, and you'll hear another turkey respond to you, whether it's a hen or a gobbler. You can get a response with just a small sound. I like to start small and build up. If you can't get a reaction, maybe you start throwing in an excited call that'll draw it out of them.
With this information in my pocket, along with recordings on my iPad of the various calls performed by the one and only, greatest of all time, Matt Van Cise, I went to a friend's backyard connected to a wooded part of a large lake in town. She sees turkeys all the time, she says. This bodes well for me.
So, the first is a plain yelp. And this is Matt Van Cise's plain yelp.
Did you hear that? That ever so faint, high-pitched warble of a sound? I kept hearing it, but couldn't figure out if it was the thing I came to find.
I really feel like I keep hearing a dog. Do I keep hearing a dog? I feel like I'm catfishing turkeys. Sorry, Mr. Tom. I'm just a podcaster.
Hold on. That was a turkey. Experts and consultants I played this recording for later confirmed it was a turkey. And so it's true. Matt Van Cise, the greatest of all time goat turkey caller, even on recordings, does indeed have an extraordinarily turkey-like quality about his calls. There's one problem, though. I don't know how to play turkey chess. I don't know where that gobble came from, or how far away it is, or where to move, or how to respond, so I did not see a turkey on this day. And here's something I've learned while researching for this miniseries. Wild turkeys are a lot like Bill Murray. They show up when you least expect them and provide you with some sort of absurd experience you'll talk about forever, sometimes hilarious, sometimes maddening, and then they disappear. But if you're intentionally looking for them, you'll never find them. Most especially if you're trying to do a podcast about them. I needed more than just knowledge. I needed a guru. I needed Farmer Billy.
All right, I'll carry all the equipment. Morning, Malcolm. Morning, ladies. You tell them, Malcolm.
From the moo, you might have figured out that Malcolm and the ladies are a herd of brown and white cows, extremely curious about these two passersby emerging from the dusk of the 5 a.m. hour. Billy leads our hunting party of two around the cow fence to an open area, and he starts teaching me the ways of the turkey.
They normally come up this little fence line right here. He likes to strut down there along that tree line because he can see down in the woods, but he can also see up here on the hill. That's where you find them at. They're not dumb animals. I don't care what anybody says. It takes years to bring these senses into reality. But yeah, there's plenty of ways to try to figure them out, but then once you think you've got them figured out, they've changed. I try to meet them where they want to go.
We settle into the forest floor at the base of a tree, and Billy begins the match.
He just gobbled right there. That was a gobble. Yeah, he's on the ground down there. See, he gobbled again. Yeah. He's coming this way. See, he cut me off.
The first time we met, Billy told me he was deaf in one ear. Spent time in the Marines, and that affected his hearing. He leans in when you talk to him and read your lips. A turkey gobbles? Billy can hear them from yards away. And then Billy did something that blew my mind. That sound is coming from his mouth. He's mimicking something called spitting and drumming, the sound toms make when they're strutting, and he's using it to start a competition with the other tom, making him think that there's another male up the hill.
He's hot, he double gobbled.
What you can't see in that moment is that when the turkey gobbles, Billy proudly, satisfyingly looks up at the sky and smiles. I shared this clip, this moment, as a reel on Instagram, and it went viral, like for real. 1 million views in the first 36 hours, 3.5 million views in the first few days. What I gathered was that the spitting and drumming call is extremely difficult to do and impressive. Many said they had never seen anything like it before. Other turkey experts piped up and said the turkey wasn't responding to the spitting and drumming, probably couldn't even hear it. But Billy actually mentioned this himself after he did it the first time. Regardless, Billy and his spitting and drumming technique are exceptional, even to experts. Billy and I sat under the tree for 20 minutes, calling out to the gobblers and getting a response. Just waiting.
Yes, yes. He's come down that hill. Okay. He's coming over this way. Okay. That's why it sounds like he got deeper. Oh, because it's... Yeah.
And then there was nothing. No response. Our tom went silent.
Yes, he got totally quiet. Unless he's done seen us. Oh, they got sharp eyes. Either that or a coyote or something upset him. And he ran away. Because he just quit all of a sudden. Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Despite having talked to the turkey for half an hour, despite having a call with viral potential, we didn't see a single turkey that day. Roger Shields did mention that this could happen. We lost the chess match. Checkmate.
And see, with it being late season like this, he's probably not stupid.
And I guess it would make sense that the ones that are still alive at the end of the season might be the smartest ones.
Or the luckiest bastards in the world. Because sometimes luck is better than being good, you know what I'm saying?
It seems to me that this is the reason why a successful hunt doesn't involve tagging a turkey, bringing it home. Because the entire experience was so worth my time. Waking up an hour before the sun rose, hearing roosters crowing, walking in the dark on a dirt path, seeing ducks on the pond with their babies.
Some people are like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, you just don't get it. You get to see the ducks, you get to see squirrels, you get to see chipmunks doing stuff that you're like, wow. It's just amazing. The deer.
And then, on top of all this, to experience the thrill of calling out to a wild creature and hearing a response. I got it. I understood why turkey people are the way that they are. It's worth noting that something involving so much isolation and silence has such a strong relational element, but that's what was required to preserve the act of the experience by banding together across the country to save a bird, to form a national federation and gatherings that speak poetically about the preservation of wildlife to protect a tradition. But in order to do that, these people had to be willing to sacrifice and put their money and actions where their heart was, and this required taking cues from history, both recent and ancient. Coming up on the next episode of the mini-series,
the Native Americans are probably the greatest group of conservationists by far. They really worshiped the land and the animals, but they also had to harvest animals to survive. And so it was a balance that they had to engage in. And so they have a really unique perspective.
we explore this balance, a balance that existed long before the first Thanksgiving feast of legend and that informed the work of the early conservationists.
They learned to coexist side by side because they always have with humans. There's always been a relationship with humans and that particular bird.
You've got to invest in everything and respect everything for us to all have a future, or there will be no future for very long.
On the next episode in this story, we're going to meet the people who have connections to the original work of wild turkey conservation. And in talking to them, we'll see how this modern-day movement has actually been around for centuries, but with a really surprising connecting point. Stay right here on Niche to Meet You. That's the next episode. The Niche to Meet You project and the stories we tell are crafted for you by me, Leslie Eiler Thompson, and Chris Thiessen, who is the script editor. The music you hear is composed by Abigail Flowers, and this arrangement is by Zach and Maggie White, and our mastering was done by Kevin Morris. Find out more about this project and all the niche interests we've explored at nichetomeetyou.show. I hope you enjoyed this episode, my new niche buddy. There are more episodes waiting for you wherever you're listening to this one right here, right now. So go find them, like our episode about dog agility, or like vintage car radio restoration. There is so much more to be found in the Nicheverse. I'm so glad to have had you with us. Don't be a stranger. We'll see you next time.